they can't all be our best friends. Just because he and I are best friends, we can't be best friends with everybody. But that's how we started, and that's what we started to be. And I thought, again, from no real experience in business and no real experience even just working, I thought, well, hey, we're all just one big happy family. These are my best friends, and we're all going to hang out. We're going to do crazy things together, and we're going to have a good time. And we did. We did all those things, and we had a good time. But we also learned a lot of valuable lessons along the way. And really, what we learned is, those folks that were there for us and working for us, our responsibility was to help them, not necessarily be best friends with them, but to help them gain a career, help them understand, how to function well in the business, help them have a path to success, do those type of things. So in the early stages, young Trevor didn't understand that and really made a lot of mistakes. And then as I progressed and started to understand, really any business, it's about the staff. It's no longer about just me being, I'm a hard worker and I'm the man and all that stuff. It really doesn't matter. What matters is how are you developing them? How are you growing them? How are you nurturing their success? And that's what benefits everybody.
On Creative Assembly's The Spark podcast, our mission is to amplify Nashville's diverse creative voices, foster growth through shared journeys, and inspire a city that thrives on collaboration. And now, here's The Spark.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back to The Spark. I'm your host, Mark Scrivener, and today I'm joined by a good friend and someone who's built an SEO company from the kitchen table all the way to a nationally recognized brand. Trevor Emerson with LSM, excited to have you on the show today. Man, you have done some amazing work along the way, and looking forward to hearing your story.
Couldn't be more excited. Love you and love being here. Absolutely.
Oh, thanks, man. Well, let's spark this conversation. Maybe just maybe to kick us off, maybe you could tell us, instead of LSM, but maybe just tell us a little bit about your journey, what got you to even want to start a business. I know you went to high school at the same high school my daughter is getting ready to graduate from. So awesome. That's one check in your box. So.
So I'm a Nashville native, went to Hume Fogg and, graduated, went to college, moved to Spain with my older brother for a little while, came back and didn't really super have a good direction on what I wanted to do and what I, was interested in and all those kind of things. I'd kicked around the idea of going to law school. I had all these different things and ended up kind of hanging out, I went to graduate school, got a master's in education. I thought I was going to be a college professor. So like that, I was going to do that. Then I was going to go straight into getting a PhD and then teaching. And ended up hanging out with a really close friend of mine. We were at the Music City Brewers Festival together. We were drinking beer and chatting and having a good time. And he was telling me that he was going to quit his job and start trying to sell Google advertising, which in 2006, Google advertising had only been around for like maybe a year and a half. And I didn't really know what it was or anything like that. But I remember telling him, I was like, well, how are you going to do that? Like, I don't even know what that is. And he started talking to me a little bit about it. And we were good friends. And he's like, why don't you come do it with me? And I said, do you even know what you're doing? And he was like, no. And I didn't know what I was doing either, but off we went. And we kind of, developed an interest in what we were doing from that point on. But yeah, so I didn't really have a career, going. I've never had a job, really. I've only done this. And I've only started and worked and built up LSM. So there was a lot of things that we didn't know. And a lot of that's probably because I'd never really worked before. Yeah. So we just started doing it.
Man, well, I can't wait to dig into it. And I know I mentioned at the beginning, SEO, and sure. I know you do so much more than that now. And but what started as when you first kicked off the company, it was Local Search Masters, now LSM, because you do so much more than just local search. But maybe now just take the audience through like what that part of the journey and like how you've evolved over the years.
Yeah, for sure. So Started off definitely cutting our teeth on the SEO side of the world, as well as like doing some pay-per-click and things like that. And that was great for a long time. And that was, that was back in the day when it was all about how can you get a website to rank number one, for a search. And if it was ranked number one, like that was it. I mean, you had done it. And so we started figuring out how to make that happen. And we were shucking and jiving and making a bunch of mistakes and just figuring everything out. And eventually we got to a point where it started to click and started to work a little bit. And yeah, to your point, as the years went on and things progressed, we started to just change with the times. I mean, that was a big way for us to potentially drive revenue and help our customers to get them number one on Google. And as Google changed and everything else changed, and along came social media and all that good stuff back in like 08, 09, 2010 with Facebook and everything, we had to start evolving. And we've continued that trend. And I know we're going to talk more about it and everything else, but we've continued to kind of just evolve and grow.
Man, I guess in the early days, you were working with just any business out there. And now I know you're probably one of the best out there that does franchise marketing and franchise SEO and, all the digital. And I guess what was that pivot point where you said, man, I can go get a lot more business with just than the one-off projects that we're doing?
Absolutely. So interestingly enough, in 2010, I had a business coach, Dick Sullivan, great guy. And I started having sessions with him and we were talking and what we realized that every time I would get a good client, like every time I would get even a great local Nashville client, like we used to work with Advanced Financial and some of these guys here in town, and it was fantastic. But every time I got that next big client or that good next local client, I always had to kind of level up my infrastructure to keep up with it. Always had to hire more people. Always had to, kind of grow that way. So my profit was kind of just holding steady. It was never really growing. And he was encouraging me and discussing with me about how, hey, when you're running a business, the big key to it is you want to put money in your pocket. I mean, that's got a lot to do with it. And how are we going to really scale the business? How are we going to really grow it? And I didn't know the answer at the time, but I started thinking through it. And my old partner, Brad, he had went to Vanderbilt to their MBA program with one of his classmates, had bought a Massage Envy franchise in North Carolina. And I started thinking about it, and I thought, well, if we can do a good job for her franchise location of Massage Envy, and we can figure out how to market it well, we can figure out the SEO, we can figure out the ads, well, we can do that for 200 Massage Envies or 400 or 1,000, because it's kind of a replicable thing at that point. And my team doesn't need to keep expanding and expanding, because if one or two of them really know that business, it's very scalable to say, okay, here are the things that really work for this franchise brand in this location, and we apply those learnings to all these other ones. So it helped me understand how we could start to grow in that space, grow our profitability, and really become experts in a niche. And I think that's something that for agency owners, sometimes we struggle with, because especially when we're just getting started. When we're just getting started, to your point, you'll take anything. I mean, anybody that comes around and says, I'll give you $400 a month, you're like, I'll take it, and I'll bend over backwards and I'll do anything for you. Eventually, as you get a little further down the road, you start to say, well, who can I really provide this service for that matters? And how can I become a subject matter expert, so that when we go and we speak to these folks, we have something that, delineates us from just everybody that's around. And we saw that opportunity, and it's, frankly, it's a little tough sometimes to work in the franchise space, but it's also a great community. You're dealing with a lot of folks that are kind of owning a business sometimes for the first time, and you're helping them walk through that. So you've got a scalable model, you've got a proven model, you've occasionally got some green owners, and you can help them through that and really just focus in on partnering with them to help them grow their business. It's like anything else. It's just more of a scale to it than one-off.
Well, you're so right, man. And I guess you never really had a job out of school. So this has been your first job, and you've grown through it. Tell tell us about like the early version of Trevor to where you're at today. Like, what all did you have to learn along the way that's got you where you're at today?
Yeah. Had to learn a lot. Certainly. Had to learn really just how do you have employees? I mean, that was one of the big challenges when it was just Brad and I sitting at the kitchen table working on stuff. Well, that was easy because it was just he and I, and we could take our lunch break and play video games, or we could eat pizza and we could hang out, or we could drink a beer at 2:00 in the afternoon, and it didn't matter. It was just us and we were hanging out. And once we started to grow a little bit and get to a point where we needed employees because we had to service the business we were building up, that's when a lot of learning happened. I mean, we started to really understand, okay, they can't all be our best friends. Just because he and I are best friends, we can't be best friends with everybody. But that's how we started, and that's what we started to be. And I thought, again, from no real experience in business and no real experience even just working, I thought, well, hey, we're all just one big happy family. These are my best friends, and we're all going to hang out. We're going to do crazy things together, and we're going to have a good time. And we did. We did all those things, and we had a good time. But we also learned a lot of valuable lessons along the way. And really, what we learned is, those folks that were there for us and working for us, our responsibility was to help them, not necessarily be best friends with them, but to help them gain a career, help them understand, how to function well in the business, help them have a path to success, do those type of things. So in the early stages, young Trevor didn't understand that and really made a lot of mistakes. And then as I progressed and started to understand, really any business, it's about the staff. It's no longer about just me being, I'm a hard worker and I'm the man and all that stuff. It really doesn't matter. What matters is how are you developing them? How are you growing them? How are you nurturing their success? And that's what benefits everybody.
Yeah, for sure. But every agency owner goes through exactly what you just said. They wanted everybody to like them and be their friends. And it's like, boy, you do learn some valuable lessons along the way.
Yep.
So
you can have some fun. I mean, I've had some great times, but at the same time, on the back end of those great times, it was like, that was probably not very smart.
Yeah, for sure. When was the moment where you realized like local search wasn't going to be enough? Like was it just clients started asking you for more and more, or how did that all play out? Yeah,
that was definitely a big part of it, was just the shift in, and we're seeing that now, right? We're seeing it currently, and I'm sure we'll get to a little bit of this, but we're seeing it currently where the client conversation, the client ask is more around AI. Are you doing GEO? Are you doing AEO? Are you doing, so there's that client demand that starts to push you in a certain direction. And so we started realizing like, there's this big thing out there now that everybody's on. They were all on Facebook, and we had to evolve and adapt into that. And then it's like, well, can we get assets and videos to put on YouTube? And we, just as those products came out, we had to evolve along with them, and building websites and all those type of things. So a lot of it was client focused, client driven, and then also a good part of it was receiving good coaching and understanding that one lesson I learned very early on is I don't really know what I'm doing, and that's an important lesson to learn. And that other people, especially older people, they do know what they're doing because they've been through it. And my coach at the time was always very interested in having me develop other kind of channels for revenue. And how do you keep growing? And one of his big things he would always say is, if you're the same business this year that you were last year, you're failing. You always have to change. You always have to adapt. You always have to grow. Otherwise, you're gonna be Sears or something like that, right? That just eventually just goes away. And so I've always adopted that philosophy and thought through that too. So kind of a little bit of a client side of it, right? And then a little bit of just receiving some good advice on always evolving and always changing.
Yeah. Well, that franchise space, I know you and I have had multiple conversations about. We had a small franchise client that, man, it was really hard. I wish I would have just given it to you at the very beginning. Right. I think it was too late when we talked about like handing it over. But talk a little bit about like, I know you said some of these people that are franchisees are going to be like first-time business owners, and you're having to teach them a lot more than just like the marketing aspect of business, right?
For sure. Yeah, and it's a little bit of that, but then also helping them understand in some cases, like, hey, you guys are entrepreneurs now. You're not employees. Because the majority of folks that go into franchising, they used to have a job, right? And usually a pretty successful one. And they were really good at it. And they made good money. And then they eventually said, hey, I'm a little older now and I'd like to do my own thing. But what can happen is they try to run that business like they're an employee still. Or, they try to run it almost no risk and they're kind of scared and all that. And just sort of talking through and coaching like, hey, there's going to be some risk in investing in this advertising, or there's some risk in some of the things you're doing. But that's what owning your own business is all about. You got to get out there. We got to take a little risk here. And if you don't, it's probably not going to succeed. And if you're married to your spreadsheet, if you will, then it's going to be tough it's going to be tough to grow.
It probably makes you really sticky though, when you're able to talk CEO to CEO to some of these folks and give them great advice on not just marketing, but running a business.
For sure. And the relationship side is huge and always has been. And, no matter what's come out with technology, and it's evolved over the years and it's continuing to evolve. And, people often say, when we were going through the time when, in-person meetings and stuff was becoming a challenge, folks were saying, oh, this is never, that's a thing of the past and all that. And it's not, and it never will be. People like people, and people want to know that they can call you, you'll answer, and you'll help them. And that's really, at the end of the day, all they're looking for. They just want somebody to help them, and they want to succeed themselves, and they want to know that you care. And if we can exhibit that, we care about them and we care about their success, that leads into a lot of different paths. But most importantly, it leads into we have a relationship and we know we can trust each other. And that's tough to find in business sometimes.
Yeah. Well, man, it's been fun watching you grow this and scale it over the years. And I know you've not only like grown organically, but you've also made an acquisition or two.
Yeah.
And you've opened another office up, and maybe talk a little bit about that.
I'm going to have a drink before I talk about that. But
we'll be right back.
We'll be right back because I do want to talk about that. But it's no, I'm just kidding. It's been I was thinking back in 2022, we've always just kind of kept growing, and it's been organic, and okay, let's just keep building. And, you start to wonder if you're ever going to really kind of hit some big goals and, get out there and be risky, and sort of just my nature as an entrepreneur who's really doesn't know anything else besides being that. I'm always intrigued by a little bit of risk. I'm always intrigued by a little bit of, let's get out there and try something. And so, doing an acquisition of another agency I thought was going to be interesting. And it was. And in spite of my wife's protest, I bought one in Vegas because she knows me well. And Vegas may not have been the best place for me. But we got out there, and I really loved the team out there. I love that they were bringing a new aspect to our business. They were very proficient, the group that we acquired out there, very proficient in web development, software development, some of those things that we were not overly skilled at. So they just brought a whole new arm to LSM and what we're able to provide to our customers. And bringing on that group has also enhanced our ability to do creative. We do a lot of production work now and creative work, which I know you guys do a lot of. But we're able to do that now. And a lot of that was because of that acquisition. So my main goal, my main thought in that was, it's always, any business person, certainly you look at it and say, it's just going to bring me more revenue. Am I going to get more money and, all that stuff. But really, I was looking at it like, how can we go back to that principle again that I was taught many years ago, and that's continue to grow, continue to build. Like, what else can we offer? How can we become more sticky to a customer? If a customer realizes we can handle all of their creative, all of their SEO, all of their ad placement, all of this and this and this, it's a lot more difficult for them to move on away from us.
How long did that process take when you made that acquisition? What kind of due diligence do you have to go through? And maybe even share with the audience, because I'm sure there's a lot of agency owners that are looking at acquisitions. Like, what do you wish you could have done over?
Yeah, definitely learned a lot for sure. And I think the main thing I learned from that is that approaching an acquisition and approaching something that's pretty major. I mean, that's a kind of a major event to do that. Approaching that acquisition like a riverboat gambling entrepreneur is not the best way to go. And that's what I learned. And so I didn't know what I didn't know. So I kind of just approached it like me. I just approached it like, well, I've evaluated this, and I've talked to the owner, and I've talked to the employees, and I'm doing what I'm doing. And that's a very typical kind of, business owner type of thing to do. But in retrospect, I think it would have been more wise to bring in some other folks who just knew more about it, other people who could help me with diligence, other people who could help me with just evaluation of staff and evaluation of where it's going to go and those type of things. So definitely learned that lesson, but then not to say it's been a mistake or something I regret, because it isn't. We have wonderful people out there. I'm really proud of them and glad that we did it. But just things I probably wish I would have known and maybe done a little different. Yeah,
well, it sounds as though you've probably done a lot of stuff right, just because like they're still with you. I mean, you acquired them in what year?
2023.
Yeah. So, I mean, still being around 3 years later is, a big deal. And so you probably did a lot of stuff right. But like every agency owner that acquires an agency, there's some things you wish you could go back and redo. And we've learned those lessons too along the way. So,
yeah. It's, big shout out to Justin and Kristen and Kevin and Yanni and those guys out there in Vegas, because they're phenomenal team members. And really, they've enhanced our culture. I mean, I think one of the things that I thought was going to be a big win was like, well, I've got a great culture, so I'm going to bring them into my culture. And it's, and we have in some ways, but in a lot of ways, they've brought their culture to us. And that's been a big win. And that's been exciting, to have them bring their own kind of flavor to what LSM is and make it what it is today.
Yeah. It's interesting running two cities. And I guess what kind of infrastructure did you have to rethink? And then maybe even talk a little bit more about that culture. Like what were the things you learned from them that, I've always heard you've had a great culture. And so, but what did you learn from them that?
Yeah, for sure. They, it's interesting kind of going back to some of the original concepts I had that I really loved, that they had a great tight-knit group out there. A lot of camaraderie, a lot of joy, a lot of friendship, and kind of relying on each other. And I felt like that was really strong for them, and I love that about them. And it still kind of carries on till today. They're real supportive of each other, and they're real supportive of just the rest of the team members. A lot of enthusiasm. We love bringing them in. One of the things I wish I would have been able to do a little more infrastructure wise, kind of talking through that, is maybe set up more of like a regular. I wish I would have pre-thought about the fact that like having more of a regular cadence of visiting. In other words, like they come out 1 month, I go out there the next month. They come out the next month, I go out the next month, because we get such a shot in the arm. We get so much joy and electricity when we're around each other. And then 3 or 4 months go by, and then we see them again, and it's like, wow, yeah, this is great. This is what we want, and you kind of remember that, like, yeah, they're really a part of the team, and they're such a great part of the team. And so I would have probably thought through that a little bit better, and on the next time I would do that, because agency life, like it's you can do it remote for sure. I mean, and a lot of companies are great at doing that; they can do it. But I think sometimes when you're kind of, independently owned and, all that kind of stuff, you want your employees to really know you and really like be supported by you. And that in-person touch means a lot.
Yeah. You're so right. I mean, I can, we had a St. Louis office, and, it was always, what's going on down in Nashville, and it's having that cadence where you can be in front of them, they can be in front of you a little more regularly would have helped us out too in the past. So that's a good lesson.
For sure.
Yeah. What is there a project or like a client relationship along the way that you said, this really like made LSM who it is today?
Yeah, I can kind of think of a couple. So like I said, when we got into the franchising space, we started working with a brand called Massage Envy. And huge, right?
Yeah.
And I developed a great relationship with the way it was structured at the time is they would have a regional developer, so someone who essentially almost kind of works for corporate, if you will, but they would buy the rights to a state, and then they would develop all the franchisees in that state and kind of lead the group and all those kind of things. And the guy out in North Carolina, Jim Fitzsimmons, and I became pretty close, and he really helped me tremendously with just even allowing us to get our foot in the door and be a part of it. And then kind of through him, I met a guy who has really helped me a tremendous amount throughout the years. I mean, just tremendously. And we became like very, very close personal friends as well. This guy, John Brovitz, and his wife, Bonnie, he helped open the door for me inside this franchising space to so many things. He introduced me to people that got me involved in European Wax Center and Amazing Lash and all these different franchise brands that at the time I was really just with Massage Envy, and I didn't have kind of that experience in that world. And because we sort of, became fast friends and I mean, I would stay in his guest house when I would go out to Arizona and hang out with him. And still to this day, we're close. And he just got into a new franchise brand, and we're working with him. And we're working with him again. So, developing a relationship like that, a couple of those like key players, that really kicked us off into that space has been huge. I mean, it's invaluable to have met those guys.
What's maybe one of the bigger challenges you've dealt with as an agency owner, and maybe like help the audience like learn what it take to get through that? And I mean, I'd tell you, like, there's probably been 5 or 6 for us. So I'm sure you probably can't narrow it down to just one, but maybe just talk about something that you worked through and maybe how you got through it.
Yeah, I think one of the biggest challenges for agencies is if somebody puts a big opportunity in front of us, we want to take it, right? We rarely are we going to say, well, that's a big thing, and I don't even know if I'm prepared for it. So we've had a few, more than a few over the years. It's 20 years now. But we've had more than a few over the years where we felt really secure with a piece of business that we had, and then the chief marketing officer or a new CEO comes in and they fire the old chief marketing officer, or the new CEO makes a whole different direction for the business. Yeah. And that happens from time to time. And we've lost multi-million-dollar a year jobs in a lot of ways through no fault of our own. It's just new person comes in, they want to do it their way. And it can be tough, especially in the franchise space. That's probably the biggest challenge that and it's kind of an evergreen challenge that we deal with. And that is, we get in with these brands, we do well, and we feel like we have this really tight, good relationship kind of at the C level. And then the C level goes away, the new C level comes in, and for better or for worse, they want to make their own stamp. And they usually, the first move they do is to get rid of the vendor and then bring in their own vendor. And to be able to be faced with the challenge of like, I have to lay people off now. I have to, I just lost $2 million a year, and it just happens like that. Right. And you have no control over it. You can't see it coming. You can't predict it. You can't do any of those things. And that can be really gut wrenching and really hard. To let people go is tough. Yeah. And especially when it's not their fault, and it's not your fault. So navigating that, and that's been a big challenge over the years, and really trying to understand how to somehow mitigate that risk. It can be a big challenge, and every agency goes through it. And I've been on the benefiting end of that from time to time, right? I've had the relationship with the new CMO that comes in, and they kick out a vendor, and then they bring me on. So I mean, I've been on the other side, but that's certainly a big challenge.
Yeah. How do you communicate the value you're bringing to these franchisees and even franchises to be able to go land more? Like, what is that pitch? What do you do different?
For sure. I make it all about the return on the investment. everything that we do has to boil down to, if we're just doing content for you, if we're just doing creative for you, if we're just doing social media for you, there's got to be some type of tangible revenue benefit from it. If we're running advertisements, well, that's a little easier, because then we can say, okay, we ran these advertisements, and what we want to do is we want to run these advertisements. We want to integrate into your CRM system or your point of sale system, and then tag those ads all the way through, so we can say, okay, in a franchisee's case, okay, franchisee, you spent $5,000 on advertising this month. We know, just by your business model, that we need to get you about 100 leads from that. Out of those 100 good qualified leads, you're going to get maybe 50 that actually show up and do something for you. And we also know that those 50 customers have a lifetime value of X, so that we can then go back and say, you, off this $5,000 investment, you made $36,000. And I know, based on your margins, that $36,000 actually equates to about $15,000 that you can have. So you, franchise owner, you made $10,000 this month investing $5,000. Mm-hmm. And you got to speak to them in that way and help them understand it in that way, because if you're demonstrating that you're actually putting more money back in their pocket, why would they ever leave you?
Yeah.
And that's the whole game.
Exactly. You know so much about the franchise space, and this, isn't marketing related, but what are some of the biggest trending franchises today?
Definitely kind of still today, in the elective wellness space, as far as testosterone replacement, hormone replacement, peptides, wow. That kind of thing is, is big for a while there, and still now, mental health franchises and things like that is still big. And then it's always big. The home services space is always big in franchising. Home services is going to get very enhanced by technology, very enhanced by AI, but you still got to have a plumber come out and help you. Yeah. You still got to have somebody put a roof on your house. You still got to, and until we get a bunch of robots, it's still going to be people. Yeah. So those home service franchise brands are still really, really popular and very profitable.
Really?
Yeah.
That's good to know. Yeah, I figured the health and wellness. That's yes. all you hear, the rage, but those, the plumbing and the electrical or whatever, absolutely. The roofers,
air conditioning. HVAC. All those guys are still doing really well in the franchise space.
Well, now we're going to break into some more technical. So it's, I know this space is evolving significantly, and you guys are on the front edge of it. What are you seeing today from SEO to GEO? How are you preparing, and what are you getting your clients set up for?
Yeah, it's definitely the topic of the day for sure. And there's some really good news on that front. And with regard to this, back in the day, if we wanted to do SEO for a 800 location franchise brand, that's going to come at a hefty cost. Man, it's because we have to write all new content across that whole website. We have to build new service level pages for the, for that website. It's a massive undertaking, especially back in the day, because I got to have people, even if we run it through a script or something to randomize it, we still got to have people writing all that content, proofing all that content, and doing those things. Well, now we can do that type of work for less than half the cost, because AI is going to write it all for us. We just got to proofread it, and then we can upload it, and we got to make sure it's on. Well, obviously we have to teach Claude, and we have to teach, those programs to write the way we want them to. But once you teach them how to write what you want, and once you teach it how to have the voice of the brand, then the job becomes so much easier, and you can really get in there and do that. And really the value of the agency, because maybe thinking well, they can just do that themselves then, right? But the value of the agency is still understanding marketplace, still understanding the trend and where it needs to go, and then formulating, what that content needs to be on that front. And, the kind of the answer engine optimization and the GEO and those type of things, still in its beginnings, but always going to keep growing. But really what we focus on now is the way we want to write content is really the way that the expert would explain it to someone. So, for example, if you were going to I mentioned my buddy John Brovitz a little while ago. He's got a new concept called Relive, and Relive is doing hormone replacement and peptides and that type of thing. Well, the way that we want to write content on his website to get picked up by the answer engines and by AI, et cetera, is how is the person sitting in that in his brick and mortar, how are they explaining to you the benefit of peptides? How are they explaining to you the benefit of hormone replacement? What are they saying? We want to take that and put it on the website so that when someone types in, what should I do, BP 715 or 157, whatever it is, or should I do hormone? They could crawl and pick up the answer from that website because we're writing that detailed understanding directly from the mouth. Same thing with the home service industry. We want to write content just the way the plumber would tell you what's wrong. We want that content to be on the website.
Almost like how-to
For sure.
content.
Yeah. Answering the questions. I mean, and answering it in the way that they would answer it.
Well, this has been the Wild West, and I'm sure you step in and you take over for other agencies. Like, what are you seeing that's been they've done it wrong? Or, what are some of those common fails out there that you're seeing with this now?
Yeah, I'll tell you one in particular. So one of the biggest fails I think is going on now is there's a lot of agencies out there that are kind of beating their chest, if you will, about how like we are an AI agency. Like everything we do is powered by AI. And really what they're doing is they're almost kind of tricking the customer to think like, oh, wow, they've come up with this whole AI platform just all on their own. And the reality is those tools already kind of exist. They're just utilizing tools that already exist. And so because every agency at this point is an AI agent. I mean, if you're not, you're way in the dark ages. Every agency utilizes Google's AI. Every agency utilizes Meta's AI. Every agency, utilizes Claude and utilizes ChatGPT to write content and do all those things. And utilizing like what we're doing a lot of is utilizing Gamma and utilizing some of these other AI tools to create animation, to create some of these other things we can do on the social media side too, to make it interesting and make it fun. So yeah, I'd say that might be one of the ways we come in and just sort of debunk and educate sometimes, and they're like, well, this agency says they're AI specialists. I was like, well, yeah, we kind of all are. We're just using tools.
We've, you said that about writing very specific content. I mean, I know in the early days, you saw a lot of agencies that, hey, we used to produce one blog. Now we're producing 50 blogs a day for you. And it's going to really help out your SEO. And Google caught on to that pretty quick and hammered every website out there. And so we saw that in the early days.
Oh, big time. We used to, me and Brad used to take the encyclopedia, this is how old we are. We used to take the encyclopedia and scan pages and then upload it to a website. So we'd have just all this content, right? Because it worked. And it worked. And really, I think that's the big key to always take away when it comes to SEO or now GEO and all that. You just got to play by the rules. Whatever works, and just do what works. And that's all just based on a trial and error and experience. People that I think more often than not, agencies can kind of shoot themselves in the foot by sort of presenting themselves as like we know it. Like we're the ones that know something and someone else doesn't. It's like we all know something. It's just how can we provide it in a way that's going to benefit the customer?
Totally, yeah. How are you seeing like the agency role evolving, or maybe even changing in those franchise brands in the future?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's definitely lending itself more towards it. I think it's important to be full service. I think franchisees right now often struggle with, well, I've got one group that does my email marketing. I've got one group that does my direct mail. I've got one group that does my pay-per-click, and I've got one group that does my SEO. And now you've got this franchisee who maybe they own multiple locations or multiple territories, but now they got to deal with multiple vendors. And that could be a real pain because, as you know, for a long time, most agencies were like, well, this is what we do. We do SEO, or we do this, or we do that. And it can be really tough, especially in the franchise space. They have enough complication going on. I mean, most of these operators and owners are involved. I mean, they're involved in running the business, or they're involved in different that. So you want to take as much pain away from them as possible and say, hey, you can just talk, whatever you need, you can just talk to us. We will handle all the needs for you. And then the next step, I think, that's coming is also starting to help these brands operationally. So equipping them with AI tools to help their operations, equipping them with ways to streamline their sales process. Because if we're bringing them leads and we're bringing them things into their funnel, we also want to help them with the conversion side as well.
Yeah.
So I think that's sort of some of the next step that AI is really going to help with is like, the AI agents and the AI follow-up and the AI, all those things to just really hone in that sales process for them and teach them about that.
Yeah. What have you thought about new services or, that you think may need to be incorporated in down the road?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, we're always trying to change and evolve. I mean, definitely looking for ways, as I was mentioning, looking for ways to utilize AI to really help the business become more profitable. So if we can come to them with a solution, because that's really all we do. What's an agency? What's the point? The point of it is we're trying to come to this business with a solution to help them make more money. And what we usually come to them with is, well, we'll try to go out and get you more people to come through the door. But we also want to pay attention to how can we not only do that, but how can we help operationally with what you're doing as well via the tools that we're even using for ourselves. You got to start with you. Our business has to run on those things and see the efficiency. How can we help the owner set up an ecosystem where, he's going to get his, payroll and his AR and his all these things automated and sent to him, and AI is kind of facilitating that for him. Or if you're like a home service franchise and you want to understand very quickly, these are what my sales guys have done. This is what my CRM looks like. This is what my lead flow looks like. This is how much I've spent. Consolidating that all into one spot, is really important for them. And working with companies like, I have a good friend of mine here local in Nashville who's built a platform similar to that called Contractor Hub, where essentially you're taking all the things that you run your business with and consolidating everything into one spot, to where that franchise owner or just that business owner no longer has the headache of saying, okay, I got to go to QuickBooks and then I have to go to my CRM and then I have to go over here. I have to go to Salesforce. I have to do that. No, you just go to this one place and everything's housed there for you.
Yeah, man. Beyond being like a super smart, like franchise marketer, you also have your own podcast, right?
Mm-hmm.
That I think it's called Franchise or Bust.
Franchise or Bust. That's
Okay.
right. Franchise or Bust.
And we'll put the link in our show notes too,
That'd be
man.
great.
It's great. I've listened to an episode or two.
It's the #1 podcast located in Brentwood, Tennessee about franchising.
Really?
And it's the only one.
Yeah.
But we are #1.
Man.
Yeah.
There are actually some very big podcasts here in the city, and yours is one of them. So,
Well, I don't know about that, but we enjoy it, and it's fun. I mean, it's fun to get folks on and hear their story, and provide them with content.
what have you learned through that experience? Like,
Yeah, I've definitely learned that franchisors in particular, they got a lot on their plate. They got a lot to figure out. That's a tough gig to try to run an entire franchise brand and deal with all the different personalities. And it's like you're setting a culture, but you're setting a culture for a bunch of business owners that have their own ideas, their own opinions, their own way they want to do things. And you still got to wrangle that all into one cohesive plan and one cohesive message. And it's a challenge for sure. And I've learned that those CEOs and those high placed people at those franchise brands, they got to be tough. They got to set the vision and they got to stick to it and be tough.
man, that's great. I had it just a second ago. Young Trevor getting out of school. He hasn't had a job yet, but he wants to start his own agency. What kind of advice would you give him?
Two things, I think. I would say definitely try to start it in a space where you get some joy every day. You know, being an owner has so many challenges. It's constant issues. But you've got to be able to find some type of joy, some kind of happiness inside of it. Otherwise, your motivation will get sapped. And you need a tremendous amount of motivation. You know, young man who's going to maybe start a business, you got lots of energy, but you also got to have a lot of motivation. If it's a drag and if it's kind of, you know, dull, that's not going to work. So that's a big piece of advice. Get some joy. And then the next one would be pay attention to people who know more than you do. You don't know anything. And young me, like most young men, I thought I knew everything. And the reality is you know almost nothing. So pay attention to those who know more than you do.
You had to learn it all the hard way, right?
That's right. A lot of it.
Yeah. Well, man, you're one of the most like passionate and energized people out there. Like from an agency owner standpoint, I just get energized every time I talk to you. And, you know, what are you the most excited about? What keeps you going? What are you the most excited about for the looking ahead, maybe the next 5 years at LSM? Yeah,
so LSM is going to, we're going to do what we've always done. We're going to grow with the times. We're going to increase our product offerings. We're going to get into new verticals. We're going to do the things we need to do to continue to grow, evolve, change, and become a business that remains relevant. You know, we're coming up on our 20th year, and that's a long time to be around with no board members, no private equity, none of that, right? We're still just moving along, just as we are and always have been. So focusing on that, and then always latching on to our core values and why we do this. You know, Brad Hill and I, who I started, we started together, and he and I used to, even when we were dirt poor, he had his house foreclosed on, we had to sell his car, we had to move in with girlfriends who we both did not like at the time, and we had to do it, right? We had to struggle. And in spite of all that whole time, anytime he and I would talk to each other, we'd be talking to each other saying, man, it's going to be so cool one day when we're sending employees all over the country and we're successful and we're doing this and we're doing that. And we never let it get us down. And I think that's the big thing I'm excited about for the future of LSM, is always maintaining that mentality of like, just because we're down doesn't mean we're out. We're always going to succeed. We're always going to go forward, and we're going to achieve our goals. And hanging on to that is what's going to result in success.
Man, you know, that story, though, a lot of people don't realize. They look at you and they go, man, it's just been a hockey stick all the way for you. And they don't realize that you had to put your houses up for, collateral and,
still to this day, still doing stuff like that. I mean, because it's just the way it goes, right?
It's the grit that you got to have to get through the day to day.
Yeah, no doubt.
So,
no doubt.
What is there, as we start to wrap up, is there anything that maybe I didn't ask you or that you think would be valuable for the audience?
I think that the only thing might be, noteworthy is just keeping in mind that it takes a tremendous amount of effort and a tremendous amount of drive to own and operate an agency. And it takes your wife, it takes your kids, it takes your family, it takes everybody in your inner circle to all support you and to be there for you. Because it's tough. It's not just running an agency, running any business, is like that. But to do that is really important. And so really, I'm just full of gratitude and thankful for my employees, thankful for my wife, thankful for the people that that bring us along every day, because it's tough. It's a roller coaster. It's never just a hockey stick. You hockey stick for like a year or two, and then you crater, and then you hockey stick, then you crater. And to have that wherewithal to stick through that is not just about you. When I was young and just me and Brad were doing our thing, when we'd go through rough times, who cares? Big deal. But when you get older and you get a family and all that stuff, they got to go through the tough times too. And so having their support and really relying on them and relying on your staff is really important.
Yeah. Well, man, thanks for being a part of the Spark, and thanks for everything you're doing for the Nashville marketing scene. I mean, you've been around 20 years. That says a lot.
Which is weird because I'm only 32 years old.
That is super weird.
Yeah, just based on looks. Based on looks. I'm not, No.
It's man, I've enjoyed all of our conversations all along the way, and it's been good to get to know you a lot better, and appreciate you sharing all your insights on the show today. I'm sure the audience took a lot of takeaways from it.
Good. Well, I appreciate you too, man. It's been great to know you, and we've been on a similar journey for a long time now. So I've always appreciated our friendship and what you've built. It's super impressive.
Well, thanks, man. Yeah.
And thanks for the bourbon. It's really good.
Well, hey, and for any other agency owner that wants to be on the show, you're welcome to have bourbon when you're here. So
that's it.
And that wraps this episode of The Spark. A huge thanks to Trevor for really bringing it and tell us a story about LSM and from the start to where he's at today. It's been a great story. If today's conversation gave you any new insights into leadership, scaling, or agency growth, be sure to drop any comments or questions for Trevor or myself in the comments section, and we'll be sure to get back to you. Thanks again for joining us. Until next time, we're out.
And that's a wrap on this episode of The Spark from Creative Assembly. Thanks for spending time with us and exploring the minds shaping Nashville's creative future. If you're walking away more inspired, connected, or energized, that's exactly the point. A big thank you to our sponsor, Snapshot, and the incredible team behind the scenes who make this show possible. Your support fuels every conversation and keeps collaboration alive. So if you haven't already, subscribe wherever you get your podcasts and leave us a review. Thanks again for tuning in. Until next time, stay creative, stay curious, and keep that spark.